Hello, welcome all to episode 3 of the Middle-earth In Mercia podcast, The Breaking of the Fellowship. Hello everyone, I'm your host Sunny, and this is the Middle-earth In Mercia podcast. Now I know I am making a bit of a habit every podcast of going over this, but I just want to say thank you once again for listening. We've had a great reception to episode 2 once again, and I can actually see, based on the viewing figures, that we've got new people still coming in and actually going back and listening to episode 1, so that's fantastic. And if you are enjoying the podcast and you do want to support us, the number one way you can support us is to help us grow. Please tell your friends about the podcast. Please like the Facebook page. Subscribe to us on your podcast provider of choice. We do have some affiliate links that are out there. I'm not going to go on about them. If you want to find them, they are there. But for me, the thing that I'm enjoying the most is growing the podcast and increasing contact with you, the listeners. Now, unfortunately, I do need to start off on a bit of a bum note, really, but I think it's best to just peel off the plaster straight away and go into it so we can move on from it. I've had a bit of an update from Chris, unfortunately, and it's not really the update I would have liked to have heard, really. He's come to me and explained that he feels he is perhaps overcommitted and that going to Ardacon for a 4-day event, the 2-day doubles and the 2-day singles, perhaps isn't for him, and he doesn't feel up for it. Obviously, everybody is entitled to make the decisions that are right for them. I don't quite understand it. There's nothing more to it. Chris is fine, which obviously I'm very happy about. There's no nefarious or bad reason or falling out or anything like that that's caused this. It is a bit out of the blue from my perspective, but we're grown-ups, and I have to respect his decision. If it's not for him, then there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, from my perspective, nothing changes in my friendship with him. We have a long-running friendship, and we've both been there for each other in really important and difficult times. But obviously, that aside, I'm completely gutted. I feel like someone has cancelled Christmas and told me if I want to attend Boxing Day, then it's going to cost a hell of a lot more than I was planning. Like, placing aside sort of instances, like serious things where people are unwell or things like that, I'm pretty much as gutted as I can humanly be. I think the last time I felt like this, my motorcycle had just been nicked. The police had just told me they weren't coming out to look into it, and I had no way to get to work. Yeah, beyond gutted. I can't really articulate how much I was looking forward to going to an event like that with one of my closest friends. It would have been immense, but obviously it wasn't to be. Now, I have had a bit of a think about it. Honestly, the evening of when I got this news, I genuinely felt like just packing up all of my models into a box, calling off all the other tournaments, never visiting the podcast again, and just spending the summer working on my motorcycles and riding them, throwing myself into another hobby. That was my initial gut reaction. However, I have really enjoyed doing this podcast. I've really enjoyed getting some of my, not new mates, but some of my other mates into this war game. And I've even convinced one of my mates who's not been involved in wargaming at all to pick up Lord of the Rings. I've been loving all of that. Loving meeting up with the guys and playing on a weekly basis to try and get in the rhythm of things. I've been loving crafting a theme for an army. Like I normally just sort of do drips and drabs with my Lord of the Rings, but to actually come up with this is the idea for the army, this is the theme for the army, these are the painting schemes for the army, and looking to deliver it as a cohesive force through an event. I have been loving that. And those around me, those are close to me, my lovely girlfriend, even she has picked up on how much enjoyment it's brought me, and how, not that I'm not energized normally, but that I have just got particularly energized about this. And yeah, that motivation is leading to results, which is then bringing further enjoyment. And yeah, once the initial shock is worn off, I've thought to myself, no, like, I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram. That's a silly thing to do. I'm a 30-year-old bloke, you know. I need to crack on with this, and I need to make the best of the situation as I can. And Chris has made his decision, but I've got my own decision to make. And my hesitation, I think, really is because I am a friendly guy. I think I'm very good to those close to me, but I do struggle a little bit in sort of situations where I don't know anyone, where it's a room full of people, and I don't know anyone, and I can struggle a bit with that, and I tend to be quite quiet, which is quite against my personality, really, once you get to know me. And yeah, my hesitation is certainly going to a 4-day event, not knowing anyone, is not something I would have bought a ticket for, not in a million years going into it. However, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick with it through hell or high water. I'm going to go. Now, this poses several challenges to me, obviously. I don't have a doubles partner anymore. That sort of feels like I'm up river without a paddle, really, there. I am speaking to, because Chris has said, like, he's held his hands up and said, like, obviously this is my decision, that he will pay for the ticket if we can't sell it on, or he will possibly subsidize the ticket to encourage someone to go with me. So I have got a few friends that I'm encouraging to come with me. Obviously, I don't want to put too much pressure on them. If they don't want to come, they don't want to come. But I think all of the guys that play with me, like Ash you've heard from, Tom you've heard about but not met, and my friend Alex also, who's a new recruit, they are still learning the game. And I'm a little daunted by the prospect of singles, so of course they are quite intensely as well. Ash just can't make it due to calendar conflicts, and Tom is an unknown in terms of his availability at the moment. He's got some stuff in his life developing that he needs to see where it goes. So that only really leaves Alex, really, and I do not blame the guy for not being up for the singles, regardless of how much or little it costs. But he's sort of on the reserve list at the moment for the possible doubles. So yeah, that is the big challenge number one. Challenge number two is financially. I live in Coventry, obviously. Manchester is quite a long way away. Going it alone doubles my transport costs. It probably doesn't double my accommodation costs, but it's certainly going to increase it because I can't be in a twin. So I'm going to try and sort out a doubles partner. I'm going to try and sort out someone else to go with. But I obviously have to plan for the worst case scenario where it's just me going. So yeah, those are all things I'm thinking about. But a lot of those things are quite uncertain. So one thing I would say is, if you are a Middle-earth player who lives in Mercia, is within travelling distance of Coventry, to the point that we could meet up, play some games together, and you're desperate for a ticket to Ardacon, here I am. Drop me a line at middleearthinmercia@gmail.com. Maybe we can make something good out of this situation. A new friendship. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, no offense to people that live a bit further afield than an hour, but I just think it would be good to be able to meet up, have a chat, play some practice games, and get to know each other, and go into the event being, like, decently familiar with each other, and how we play games and stuff. But yeah, please do if that description fits you. Now, off the back of all this news, there is probably one more topic that needs to be discussed, of what does this mean for the podcast? And I think I haven't discussed it directly with Chris, but I think the reality of it, being as the overarching sort of story of the podcast, at least for this first season. As I've said before, we may or may not carry on. We've got to see what happens. But the pinnacle of this first season, possibly only season, is the trip to Ardacon. And the doubles at Warhammer World that me and Chris are still going to attend is definitely part of that story. So you will hear from him again. But I think the reality is he's probably not going to continue as a co-host. And he's going to move more to being a contributor, like Ash was last week, like I hope Tom will be in future. And if I can convince him, I'm hoping Alex will too. I've definitely envisioned this as being a bit of an ensemble with these sort of interviews and getting different perspectives and sort of batting ideas around. Because, yeah, that was my original concept of just sort of formalising the conversations we have as a group as we go through this journey. And several of the guys are also interested in going to tournaments. So although out of the Middle-earth In Mercia gang, I may well wind up being the only person going to Ardacon itself. They are going to be involved. Chris is going to be involved. But I'm giving you your warning now. If you were just tolerating my voice so that you could hear a bit more of Chris, you're going to hear a lot more from me and probably a reasonable amount less from him. So, yeah, I am sad about it. I'm disappointed about it all. But what can you do? Onwards and upwards, really. Now, my final bit in this segment. Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't had any emails this week, which I'm very disappointed. I was extremely excited about that first email, but maybe we just got lucky to receive one so soon. But yeah, if you are out there, if you are enjoying it, especially this week, I could do with a little bit of encouragement. Please do write to the podcast, middleearthinmercia@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on the Facebook. That's the name of the podcast. Is our page. It'd be great to hear from you, and it would definitely be great for me to, just have a little push to keep on doing this. I have, however, had a perspective list submitted from Thomas, who's part of the Ardacon, singles team lineup. So, yeah, I thought I could read through that in a bit, and that'd be interesting to review with you all, give my thoughts on it, and comment on how it contrasts to my current work in progress. Be wise, really, I've had another 2 great weeks, truth be told. So when you heard from me last time, I had basically done quite a bit of prep on a fair few models. I had done my basing, and I was looking for my next steps, really. Now, I've kind of broken the original ethos I had with the painting. My original plan was that I was just going to get everything table ready, battle ready, which was to just do all base layers on everything, get the army done, then go back and do my shading and my edge highlighting. I did kind of throw that out the window. I'm not sure whether it was a good decision, whether it was ill-disciplined, or whether it was good for the motivation. Basically, I was looking at my Ardacon guard. I think I've mentioned it several times. I really like those models. And I was like, okay, let's just finish one of them. And long story short, I finished all 6. I got them onto their bases. I'm really happy with how they look. If you go on the Facebook, or if you go onto my personal Instagram, which is Lord of Hykra, there's pictures on both the podcast Facebook and my personal Instagram of those models. I'm really happy with how they've come out. Played them in a few games, which I'll talk more about later, and they've done really well. Yeah, just loved it. I think, recalling it back to probably the right decision. It's been good for motivation, but I do need to crack on and just continue to get things battle ready. So other than that, what I've done is I've finalised the formula for my bases. I've prepared some sort of sealant, which is just matte clear wood varnish, some PVA, both of them about 7.5% of the mixture. The rest of it is all water in a spray bottle with a little bit of fairy liquid in there as a flow aid. That seals everything in nice and rock solid, make sure nothing falls off. And the only other thing my bases were really missing was I wanted a little bit more green, so I've managed to get hold of some shrubs, which I put on there. And yeah, together with the other variations I'm doing with them, which I may not make a video on I've had a few of my friends ask me about that. I was thinking about, I'm not going to do a YouTube channel. It's not going to be a full YouTube channel, but maybe having a companion YouTube channel so that if I'm getting quite a few questions about a specific thing, I can do a short video on it. And yeah, just because I've got a couple of mates that want to know how I do my bases, I'll wind up showing both of them individually anyway. Maybe I should just record it and show my process. And then if any of you are interested in that, you can copy my method. All of my methods are stolen from other people. I will hold my hands up, and then I've cobbled them all together into my own formula. So if I do that, I will link to the people that have inspired me, that are on the internet that have taught me how to do this, because there are so many great content creators out there sharing their methods. And yeah, learned so much about basing in the last year, but specifically in the last month, I've really stepped it up. The thing I think is great about basing is that it's easy. It's really low skill. Like once you learn it, you know how to do it. You can do it time and time again, and it's really quick. Everyone's entitled to do hobby in their own way, but I do think it's a great shame when I see somebody that has painted a model to a much higher standard than I have, and then they've got a really, really basic base on there. I just think it's a simple thing people can do cheaply that really elevates the level of their models. I think an average model on a great base becomes a very good model. And if you are a very skilled painter, you just take it to that whole new level. So yeah, maybe I'll share that. So anyway, moving on. I've spoken enough about basing. That's what I've been doing on that. Other than that, what I've been doing is furiously bidding on eBay. I eventually just gave up. I couldn't manage to get any more Serpent Riders for a good price, and I couldn't find any Raiders for a good price. So the Harad Raiders were out of stock at most stockists. But they had come back in at Games Workshop, so I ordered that from them and some new paints, one or two. I've got quite a decent selection as it is, but just a couple of things I thought that would help me save me mixing as I had done, save some time on that. And I discovered that Wayland Games, who are a local games store that I frequently order from online, I discovered, strangely, they have an eBay website which does not website. They have an eBay store which doesn't stock everything that they've got on their main site, but the things it does stock is significantly cheaper than what they have on their website. So Serpent Riders on their website are £24. I think you qualify for free delivery with that, but I'm not sure. But £24, it will say it's delivered. But on their eBay store, they're £20 delivered. So yeah, I picked up another two of them, bringing my cavalry numbers to 6 Raiders and 4 Serpent Guard, which for my half of the doubles army I think is more than enough, and should give me a bit of a variation in my practice games to make different lists. So with that, I've already got Suladan, I've already got all my Harad Warriors, I've got my Ardacon Guard, I've got my Watchers of Karna, and I've got my Serpent Rider dismount. So that really finishes off everything I've got to buy. It is just a matter of basing them all and painting them all, gluing them all together, really. So yeah, I'm just cracking on with that, really. What I've been doing this evening, just before this, is all the horses had arrived today, actually. So I've just been scraping off all the mould lines off them, cleaned them up, been using my sprue glue on the plastic horses, which sprue glue, if you're not aware of, is basically you get your plastic cement. I use Tamiya extra thin. When you've got a pot that's, say, 25% of it less, you just keep adding bits of sprue into it until it melts down and it forms like, it is still runny but is reasonably solid consistency, and then use it on plastic models to glue when you've done your dry fit, which if you don't do, start doing. It only takes a second and you'll save yourself a lot of headaches. So when you dry fit and you see that you've got quite a reasonable sized gap there, you get your bit of sprue glue. I can't say it. You get your sprue glue. You apply it on there and it should fill in all the gaps, or at least most of them, and then you can save yourself some time on not having to do as much green stuff filling. So I've done that on them. And then on the metal serpent riders, I've removed the mold lines on them. And to glue them together, I've actually used a new product, which I saw recommended online. Well, it's not a new product, new to me, which is Gorilla Glue Super Glue, which everyone will have already heard of, but the gel. Now, I've been primarily using this to glue my models to their bases, because I snip the little letterbox insert, or whatever you want to call it, on the bottom of them. I cut that off. I seal the bases up completely. I make all my bases, and then once I finish painting the model, I snip them off and I glue them onto there. And sometimes that leads to a lot of pinning if the model doesn't have a large surface interacting with the base, or if you've perhaps put quite rough aggregate or something like that on there. It allows you to get a better purchase, and I highly recommend it for that. But what I have just tried is using it on these metal serpent riders, because I knew that they had quite considerable gaps on the legs where you glue them on. And I'm looking at the model now, and it does seem to have done not as well, but a similar job to the sprue goo on these metal models. I think it is I'm definitely still gonna have to do some, because it doesn't melt the metal, obviously, in the same way that the sprue goo plastic cement does. I'm still gonna have to do some green stuff filling, but I think it should reduce the workload. So if I can remember on episode 4, I'll report back on how that's gone, and whether I recommend using it for that as well. So yeah, all in, another 2 good weeks of hobby. I'm hoping when I speak to you next time that I will have maybe as many as half a dozen horses battle ready and on their bases. That would be great. I really want to integrate the horses into my practice armies, so I can see how they work. So moving on to practice games. Played quite a few games since I last spoke to you 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I reckon off the top of my head, I've probably played at least 8 games of Lord of the Rings since the last time, which is really good. Sort of managing that every week, really. And I think if I keep going at this rate, I should be pretty well versed by the time we get there. So yeah, the games I've been playing. So we've Ash actually hasn't attended since the last time I spoke to you, but I have had quite a few games. Oh no, sorry, tell a lie. Ash did attend the first time. I was just teaching Alex, which is why I didn't play him. But yeah, so I've played quite a few games against Alex, who is my long-time friend that I used to work with as an engineer. He's completely new to wargaming altogether, but I did used to play Magic the Gathering with him, and also the Game of Thrones board game. And I know he's a big fan of Lord of the Rings, so I thought this might be a good entry for him. And yeah, he's absolutely loved it. He's ordered his first army. He was so interested in it, which is going to be the Halls of Thranduil. So he's got some Royal Guard, he's got some horsemen coming, and he's got Thranduil himself. So it's going to be a really melee, choppy army. But yeah, I've been teaching him. I'm really happy with how he's progressing. I've played at least 4 or 5 of those games that I said entirely against him. And yeah, he's making really great progress. We actually played, it was last night. And yeah, I think he's just about got all the fundamentals of the game, movement, shooting, the basic heroic actions, and I've started sort of showing how you can use those in different ways. Banners, all that kind of jazz. I think next time we play, I'm going to choose some sort of real cavalry focused armies, so then he can learn that. And then moving on from that, we'll probably introduce some monsters, really focus on them. And then we'll probably move into spellcasting. And that should be bare bones, the core mechanics of the game. And then really he can just focus on, learning the strategy and the close level tactics of, sort of the combat dance. So, yeah, I can't really comment on Ash's progress because I haven't played him specifically. But Tom is coming on leaps and bounds, really. So he has also invested in his own army, and his has been delivered, and he is painting and basing at a startling rate. He's actually outdoing me at the moment, I would say. So he's doing a Rivendell army, led by Elrond and his sons. And I think he's also got Lindor. But Elrond and his sons are sort of what he's focusing on at the moment. He's also got a command pack with a banner, a captain, and then a shed load of high elves, and 2 packs of Rivendell Knights, which are going to be quite scary. I played 6 of them the other day. And yeah, he's. I think it really helps get you in and help you learn the detail of the game when you're able to focus in on that one army. It's fine as an introduction when they were sort of using my loner armies just to get them into it. But I think once you've got your own army, you can really focus on learning those rules so that you don't have to think about them. You can then focus on the game itself, and that's sort of where Tom's at now. I do think that he's got the strongest wargaming background out of any of the guys that are learning the game. That is definitely helping him excel quicker. But yeah, we had no one else could make it, so we decided to do a 900-point game, quite large, I know, but we did actually get it done in about 3 hours, so a respectable amount of time, really, with a few breaks in between. And yeah, we were playing Storm the Camp, where you've got to defend your own camp and storm the other one. And I played a 900-point force of Mordor, which had a very large contingent of wargs, about 5 Morgul Knights, a Troll Chieftain, a low level Ring Wraith, a Númenorian Captain on the horse with lance, and a smattering of orcs. Allied in was also Suladan, some Haradim, Ardacon Guard, a couple of Watchers of Karna, and then as many bowmen as I could fit in, which was 9, to provide the bow force. And it was just a really good game, really. I do think that elves are always solid, and I wasn't really playing an optimized list. I kind of just went, it was 900 points, so I was pushing the boat out a bit. I just sort of chose what I had roughly painted. So I'm not making excuses there. I don't think it was a weak list, but it's perhaps, if I was going to a tournament that was 900 points, it's certainly not what I would have brought. And I think the thing with elves is that there's not really a bad list you can make out of them because of that high fight skill. It just means you've got a solid list. And I think what Tom was playing, Elrond, the 2 sons on horses, 6 Rivendell Knights, a shed load of bowmen, and a shed load of bowmen with spears, and a bucket load of just high elves with 2 hand and a half elf swords. I think that's a really good basic solid list. Again, not necessarily what you would take to a tournament, but a good decent list. And Tom is really getting to the level where he's playing well now. It was a real challenge, and it was really nice to see somebody that I think probably a month ago was playing his first game, to see them like offering up a challenge. I think I was still able to outdo him on sort of the small level tactics, the combat dances I keep calling it, which I think is very fitting, which was just down to experience. And yeah, to be honest, and I think, to be honest, I'd be a bit disappointed in my own skills based on experience, and a bit fearful of Tom's rising skills if he was already outdoing. But I said to him, Mordor is kind of my comfort zone. I have played so many games with them. I've played them more than any other faction. And I think as he gets to know his Rivendell list, and as I have to start learning a new list in the form of Harad, I don't think his first victory against me is a million miles away. I wouldn't be surprised by the time we're hitting episode 5 or 6 if I'm coming on here and saying, "Oh, I've had a great practice game against Tom and he's done me." But yeah, it was Storm the Camp, and to be honest, So it sort of played out a bit like this. We were both standoffish. I was using my Morannon Orcs to shield my Harad Bowman, and had sort of formed a bit of a gun line, and we were exchanging quite a bit of bow fire. I got lucky and managed to take maybe 1 or 2 horses off his Rivendell Knights, which was really good for me. He did have one excellent round of shooting where he managed to just kill, I think it was 5 standard orcs in one turn, which sort of forced me to come out a bit because I thought I can't take another round of that. My cavalry, I sort of did a heroic march to get right on top of them, and then we both engaged, and he did win in the end, but I basically nullified the cavalry from getting into my infantry, which was what I was really fearful. Them coming in with that very high fight skill straight into my infantry, I think they would, with lances, they would have been absolutely slaughtering. So I was hoping with the sheer amount of wargs I had that I could break through on his cavalry, but that high fight skill, the decent amount of defense, having both and having the twins there, they did eventually win out, but I held them up long enough that it didn't really affect the rest of the game. And elsewhere, sort of, I was able to make contact with his infantry when I chose. He then did quite a good move, doing a heroic march to sort of flank me. But I had enough reserves that were quality at the back end of sort of my little column that they were able to meet that and do a decent amount of damage long enough and hold them up long enough to allow my troll to get to Elrond. And this is where an element of luck definitely comes into the game. So Elrond and the troll meet. I do have a banner in range. Tom didn't have a banner in range. I'm fight skill 7. I think Elrond is fight skill 6, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, we both heroic striked on that first turn. I got, I think it was a 1 or a 2. He got a 4 or 5 and went straight up to 10. So he won the heroic strike for all intents and purposes. We then roll. I got, I'm going to say it's a 6. And Tom got a 4. So would have had to use both remaining points of might to bring it up to a 6 to win the game. Not win the game, to win that fight. Obviously, if Tom then did that, he would need to kill the troll in one turn, which at the time he only had Elrond and a spearman in on him, so not great odds, and he would have been left mightless. So Tom did what I think was the right choice in a bad situation, and he chose not to spend those 2 points of might. I then rendered Elrond, and he had to spend 2, even with his rerollable fate, he had to spend, so first he spent a point of fate, failed it, re-rolled it, failed it, takes a wound. Well, no, doesn't take a wound straight at that point. Then he did another point of fate. He rolled it, failed it, rolled it again, failed it. So then had to spend his 3rd point of fate, and on that one he did succeed. But this left Elrond on 2 wounds, no fate, which was incredibly bad luck. Only 2 points of might remaining. Fast forward to the next turn. He did win priority. I called a heroic move with Suladan, who was nearby. I won the roll. Get back into Elrond. We both heroic strike again this turn. The same thing happens. I got a 1 or a 2, taking me up to an 8 or a 9. He goes straight up to fight skill 10. We roll again, and this time it's too big a difference. He rolled sort of 1s and 2s across the board. I was up on a 6. There was nothing he could do. I won the combat. I rendered him again, and that was the end of Elrond. Just incredibly bad luck. I did try and reassure Tom, because obviously he's a new player. Elrond is the exact kind of character you want to get into a troll to help you kill him. I did explain that obviously in those situations you really do ideally want to make sure that you're able to gank the troll. Super ideally trap him so that you can get enough hits in to ensure that you kill him despite his high defense. But yeah, just on top, I can't chalk that part of the game up to anything other than luck on my part. Very unlucky for Tom. Very unlucky. And yeah, the rest of the game really, he managed to, was it? No, he didn't quite manage to break me, and I broke him. So it wound up being a nil to points victory to me. But there were definitely points that I was very worried that he was just going to do me. There was some other luck as well. 2 of his Rivendell Knights did manage to break away. They were heading right for my camp. And then my bowmen, who hadn't really done much all game, put their shots into them, killed both horses, and that kind of just stopped that in their tracks. I was able to catch them up with infantry, and they were never going to be able to take the camp, really. So yeah, I mean, how I've given the description there, it does sound a bit one-sided, and that everything went my way, but certainly not. On a different day, Elrond kills my troll. He helps him win that middle battle. He breaks me, and maybe he breaks through to my camp. I definitely don't think it's going to be long until Tom gets his first victory. But the most important thing out of that game is we both had a great time. I could tell Tom really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was nice having a challenge, and I really look forward to our next game. So now I'm going to move on to talking about the work in progress on the doubles list for me and Chris for Harad, and I'll prospectively hopefully be able to find someone to use the Harad army with at Ardacon as well. So I think the best starting point, because my list is kind of in flux, so I'm going to go over to the list that Thomas sent me and sort of comment about how it compares to what I've got, what I think's good about this, and what's not. So let's starting off. So it's Warband 1, Suladan on horse, definitely what I've got in my list, accompanied with 3 Serpent Riders, who is a good choice, 2 Harad Raiders with spear and bow. Yeah, I think I've mentioned I'm not massively in favour of putting the bows on the Raiders and potentially losing more points if they go down. But I do think it's something I need to playtest, and it is something I'm going to playtest to sort of broaden my horizons on that, because I haven't really played cavalry like that. And then 1 Harad rider with war spear, yeah, good, and 4 bowmen. So that makes that first warband 10 out of 18 models, 220 points. Now this next warband is one of the sort of points that I thought was quite interesting of Thomas to raise, because I think I commented in the last podcast that for Chris's second warband, I think we were just talking about possibly having a chieftain, which obviously isn't really an optimized choice. So what Thomas has put here is Arin, the assassin heroes, who I believe have strike, which is the reason that Thomas has included. But I think I'm correct in saying that they only have 1 might. So yeah, I've actually brought up the stats on Battlescribe now, and yeah, I'm just going to call him Assassin Hero, because I don't want to get ridiculed for continually saying that wrong. So yeah, they're fight skill 5, hit on a 3+, strength 4, defense 4, attacks 3, which is very nice. 2 wounds, courage 4, might 1, will 1, fate 3, and they've got strike and they've got defense. And I think from my short conversation with Thomas on this, he's included the assassin hero because they get that strike. My only concern, I definitely see how this is a better choice than Harad Chieftain I was talking about. So I'll preface it with that, is that with that, bringing it in there with that strike, that my intent would obviously be to send that after a hero, someone that I'm going to strike up to. And with only having 1 might, I've only got 1 shot at it. So that is my reservation. And also defense 4, which is obviously awful against heroes, because they're almost certainly going to have strength 4, so they'd be wounding me back on 4s. Obviously, you do have the 3 fate, which would certainly help, and you can't be trapped. So that certainly does help. But yeah, I think for 80 points, it does feel a bit like a glass cannon in a glass cannon list, ultimate glass cannon. So, but I do think that's food for thought. The other thing that Thomas also did mention which I am more leaning towards, I quite like the idea of, is for 75 points and get Raza. I'm a little hesitant to buy him for Forge World, but say I do that, you've got your special rule that you can select someone else in the army as your target, and when you fight them, you go up to fight skill 6. That is very useful for free. Strength 4, defense 5, which gives you that extra protection against strength 4 heroes. So you're not being wounded on 4s, you're being wounded on 5s. Defense 5, also with 3 attacks, with 2 wounds, 5 courage, 3 might, which is what I really like. 1 will, 1 fight. He's got strike, challenge, which obviously I'm never going to use, and a hero fortitude. And Bane of Kings, which I believe allows you to reroll all wound rolls. Let's just double check that. Yeah, you can reroll all failed to wound rolls, which I think is very nice. So very, very killing. In fairness, I'd have to do the maths on what's better, to be wounded on 5s and you can't be trapped, or having the 3 fate. 3 fate is obviously 50-50. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out off the top of my head. But I'm more leaning towards Raza because you get that 3 might. Definitely food for thought. So thank you for that specific point, Thomas. So in the rest of that warband, he's got him accompanied with 6 Ardacon Guard. Definitely like that. I've got 6 Ardacon Guard. I'm well on board for that. 2 Watchers of Karna with twin blades. Also exactly what I've got in my list. And 4 Harad spears, backing them up. I quite like that warband. That is very sort of on par with what I'm thinking in parts of my list. He's then got the Betrayer on horse, who is accompanied by 11 Haradim with bow and spear, and 3 Watchers of Karna with bow. So I believe what Thomas is perhaps thinking a bit different here is, although he's got the Betrayer on horse, so he's obviously got mobility and option to move elsewhere in the army, is using the poison rule you get from the Betrayer to get full rerolls on the bows, which is definitely something we've considered. However, in our list, the Betrayer is basically in a full mounted warband, because that's primarily how we're thinking of using him, getting him in there with those lances and getting the full rerolls, which I think can be particularly nasty. But that's just a different way of going about it, and obviously he's got the horse, so he could move over to another warband. So that's 14 out of 15 potential members in that warband, totaling 245 points. Then in the final warband is Harad King for 60 points. Again, we do differ a little bit there. I'm definitely, for sure, bringing Harad King on horse with a lance. I think I want that fight skill 5 on horse with a lance. Then 4 Ardacon Guard, 1 Serpent Guard, 3 Harad Spear, and 4 Harad with bow. So that rounds out the army as 24 bows, which is 50% capacity, 48 troops, 4 heroes, 52 models total. And I think that is a very valid way of running the same setup that we're doing, just with different models. And I think the main thing I want to think about there is definitely that 4th hero, whether to have the assassin, whether to have Raza. That's definitely primarily what's got my brain turning over from those suggestions. So thank you for that, Thomas. I do appreciate you taking the time to give me your thoughts. I will have to sit down and formally write up the list and not have it so much in flux. But I would say the main differences from our list is we do have a lot more cavalry in our list. And basically all the infantry is just some spears with bows, and then the specialists in the form of Ardacon Guard and Watchers of Karna, with the idea being that the archers basically sit out in front, absolutely peppering, while providing protection for the specialists. When we close ranks and things get a lot closer, the spearmen / bowmen then step back to support with the extra attack, and the Ardacon Guard and the Watchers of Karna start to do their business. I expect you've probably just included 1 Serpent Guard on foot, just because you had an extra point or 2 there. But yeah, unless we've got surplus like that, we're also not going to run any Serpent Guard on foot, and they're just going to be our dismounts. The only other thing I would really say is we have to see how many Serpent Guard we wind up playing. I think we do actually have 6 now, Serpent Riders between me and Chris. We've maybe got a little bit carried away with our spending, so we wound up with more than I thought. But we probably don't want to buy any more models, so I'm probably not going to run more than 6 Ardacon Guards just from a cost perspective, and I'm probably not going to run more than 3 Watchers of Kana again from a cost perspective. But yeah, thank you for that, Thomas. Definitely interesting to go over that and compare someone else's thinking, and from a player that's more experienced than myself. Who knows? I am going to start playing my list in practice games. Maybe in a few episodes, I'll come back and I was wrong. I'm sorry. I don't think your list is wrong. I think this is just a different way of doing it. But I need to see how my list plays and whether I like how that plays. Maybe, 1 week I should assemble this list as best I can and play that and see how that goes. That would definitely be interesting. But yeah, thanks again for that. So yeah, the final point in this segment normally would just be to give you an update on our Ardacon preparations. I've obviously gone into that at length earlier in the podcast, so I'm not going to go over it all again. Just summing it up, Chris won't be coming to Ardacon. I'm holding off on selling his ticket off at the moment, but I am open to offers, so please contact us at middleearthinmercia@gmail.com or on Instant Messenger on Facebook if you meet the criteria I laid out earlier. I think I will probably be forced into a decision point when the accommodation is announced. If I haven't managed to find a doubles partner then, by that point, I think we'll have a chat with the guys, see if any of them want to step up. If they're not able to, then I think I will just have to, at that point, swallow the pill that I won't be able to find a doubles partner. And I'll just have to accept that, I will waste half of my ticket, and I'm only going to be able to do the singles and the Friday night fun tournament. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. It'd be really great if I can find a new doubles partner, or if maybe by the time the accommodation is announced, if one of the guys here is feeling confident enough that they would like to come. So yeah, we'll revisit that in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully I've got some good news, and the future will be bright by then. But yeah, that's it on that. So on to new releases and news in general about Middle-earth. So I haven't heard anything down the grapevine or anything like that about any tournaments specifically or anything like that, so I've got no news on that. But on the releases front, obviously discussed before about Grimbjorn and the Bjornings. They are now up for pre-order on Forge World. So we've got the Grimbjorn model, which has been confirmed as £44. A little bit pricey even for Forge World though, so I'll just leave it at that. And then we've got the Bjornings. They are £23 for the 3, and they've got alternate posings available for either the axes or the bows. So yeah, if that seems good to you, if you like those models, head over to Forge World now, and they're available for pre-order. I hope you all enjoy them. Other than that, me and Chris did actually manage to miss discussing specifically in detail about the Dragon Emperor for the Easterlings and the new Black Dragon Warriors. And I just want to talk about them quickly. Well, I mean, what can I say? Absolutely stunning models. I think taken in isolation, I have no criticisms about the look of these models whatsoever. I think they're awesome. However, taken in the context of the whole army, I do find it a little strange that they have fairly significantly, it looks like to me, changed the proportions or the scale of the Easterling Black Dragons. And I do wonder how they will look when they're lined up with the normal models. And I look forward to seeing some armies with them side by side, really. Hopefully it meshes well, but that was one thing I picked up on. I think it would be nice if they did sell, because obviously you can have the Dragon Emperor, I believe, without his mount. It would, and if they don't, it would be nice if they did rules without him and sold the model individually, because obviously, again, I don't want to just bang on about price. I've heard other people do it, and it gets boring. So I'm going to try and skim over it as quickly as possible. But £82.50 is a lot, and it would be nice if they did just offer that dismounted version for the people that maybe their budget doesn't stretch so far. But yeah, in terms of looks, I love both of them. Both of them get me excited to do a Easterling force, and that Dragon Emperor on his is it Palanquin, I believe they call it. What a great centerpiece model. Really is beautiful, and from what I've heard, it's not too bad on the cleanup. I have found, like, obviously we've got the fine cast for the main range. I find that resin very frustrating, but when I've only bought Warhammer 40k Forge World products, I find their resin to be a lot more resilient, a lot easier to clean up, so I expect it's similar. And if you do find any faults, I've got first-hand experience with the Forge World customer service, absolutely top-notch. I think the Games Workshop customer service is good anyway, but Forge World takes it to another level. They do seem to appreciate the fact you're spending a lot of money with them. You expect those models to be perfect. Well, not perfect. There is some expectation that you're going to be able to straighten out spears and the like. But if you've got something that's completely miscast, like a face, some sort of important detail with that, they will sort it out straight away for you. So yeah, we again also didn't do scores for these last weeks. These tick all the boxes for me. It's expanding an existing force, which could do with better support. It's bringing in models for profiles that we've got and we don't have models for. So I am going to take the price into a factor. I'm going to give the Easterling Black Dragon Warriors 8 out of 10. They're only losing points there because I do think these are overpriced. And I am going to give the Dragon Emperor 7 out of 10 for the same reason. But great, beautiful models. If your budget stretches to that, and you enjoy the way they look, which I think is the most important thing. Don't buy model unless you're a power gamer, meta gamer. Don't buy models, in my opinion, based on rules. Buy on what you love, because you enjoy making them, you enjoy painting them. Every time you see them on that shelf, it's going to bring that feeling back, and that lasts a lot longer than perhaps fleeting enjoyment of the rules, which may well change. And I've got one model which is a Raven Guard Contemptor Dreadnought that I bought from Forge World. I think with all the weapon options, that probably cost me about 75 quid. That's not something I would usually buy, but I was just absolutely in love with it. Bought it. I had my eye on it for a long time. And yeah, there would be people pointing at me being like, you spent £75 on one model with Dreadnought. But I've never regretted that. So if these float your boat, you can afford it, go for it. I hope you really enjoy them. Great models. So I expect when this is all edited together that this will wind up being a bit of a shorter one this week. And that's just really because I haven't quite managed to make the schedules work with any of the guys to get them on. Hopefully that will change next week. And also I probably would have tried to hold on for another week and include one of those. But just with the news from Chris, I kind of just wanted to get that discussion over and done with on here so that I can move on, really. And thank you for listening along. I have found it quite cathartic to just sort of really lay out my thoughts about that and my disappointment, and then move on and focus on the stuff that I can still enjoy and I am still looking forward to. And yeah, if you do know someone that might be able to be my doubles partner, please get in contact. And if you are enjoying the podcast, I know I've already mentioned it, but I'd really appreciate to hear from you. So thank you, everyone. This does feel like a bit different from the last 2 weeks, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. We will hopefully return to our established sort of framework of having somebody on next week. I've got some great ideas, I feel, for the podcast moving forward that I'm excited about. I really want to do a battle report. And I know you may be saying, hang on, battle report on an audio format, but I have got an idea of how I can make it work. It's not going to be sort of, a proper 40 minuter as you might watch on YouTube. But I think as a 10 to 15 minute segment on the podcast, I think I've got an idea of how I can make it work. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But yeah, guys, hopefully I haven't dragged you down too much. My disappointment. Hopefully I have been able to push that to one side for the majority of the podcast. But thank you for listening along once again. I am really enjoying doing the podcast. I am really enjoying gearing up for these tournaments. And the fact that so many of you are listening along with me on this journey, it's really taking it to another level. So thanks. I hope you have a great 2 weeks in your personal lives. I hope you have a great 2 weeks in the hobby. I look forward to speaking to you again